All right, good morning, everyone. So it's August 20th or so, 2024, and I'm gonna do I think, a three-part series in the the motor oil change, the primary oil change, and the transmission oil change. I've warmed up the engine. You're going to need a few things before you get started. You're going to need to make sure you have some couple of spare parts. So a few basics are a new oil filter, some new O-rings for the drain plugs. This is a 211 FatBoy Lo Softail. They have 3 identical drain plugs. I have the bike on a stand. It's pretty strong. I have not been able to strap it, so there you go. There's one. There's the drain plug, which was pretty tight. I bought this 211 with about 11,000 kilometers on it early last season, and I have currently about 16,000. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna undo. I do, have a relatively clean drain pan, so I can look at the oil afterwards to see how it looks and to keep an eye on things. I might try to fast forward through some of this. When I got the drain plug removed, I'll open up, there you go. I'll open up the oil bag. It should be a lot easier to drain once that's open. Look at the magnetic tip. It really doesn't have it has one tiny something which is a little bit bigger than usual, but for the most part, not too bad. When I bought the bike off a mechanic, so it was a fresh oil change. I'll be checking the O-ring, and if there's any sign of wear, I will be replacing it. Let's have a look. Looks like it looks like it's scored and Not it could be reusable, but I do have spares, so I will be replacing that. I'll also be checking very closely the threads on the drain plug, because it's hardened steel, or at least a fairly tough steel compared to the aluminum casing. So you want to make sure that you don't have any thread damage or any sharp edges or anything like this. So I'll be going through with a pick just to make sure that the threads are good and everything is good and clean with the new O-ring. And I think it's I'll put the torque spec. It's not supposed to be super tight, because if you damage the case, you're pretty screwed. Well, it might be 100 or so inch-pounds, but I'll double check that and I'll confirm what it's supposed to be. All right, pause for now. All right, so with the engine all being drained, the next step is to remove the oil filter. I will be honest with you, I have several oil filter tools. They're only about, $10 or so each. If you work on, lawn tractors, various motorcycles, cars, etc. But this particular one, it's not easy to access. And because some other guy, this is a little handy dandy tool from Harley-Davidson that is supposed to catch some of the oil. There's not a whole lot of oil there, but this was really hard to remove. I actually had to destroy it. So I actually had to poke holes with a screwdriver to loosen it off, because it was way too tight. And when you tighten this thing up, you do not need to tighten it up very much. You need to make the seal by hand, and maybe, kind of like a half a turn. So if you over tighten it, it will be a bugger to remove. And because these particular ones have a very difficult access, I might see if I can rework one of these tools to make it easier. Maybe grind this part off to make it easier to get underneath the oil filter. There it is. So I'm looking straight up at the bike. I've already basically cleaned the magnetic tip, cleaned the thread. I've replaced the O-ring. And I'm just giving this a snug hand tight. I'll get in there with the torque wrench in a sec. The torque spec is 14 to 21 foot-pounds, and my torque wrench is in Newton meters, and so that converts to about 15 foot-pounds, converts to about 20. Can't really see that. About 20 Newton meters. Way. There you go. One more time. All right. Going with the new oil filter here. Bloody hell. It's very tricky because it's oily and slippery. But the idea is to put it in until you make contact with the seal, and maybe about half a turn. There, okay, I'm good. And snug. All right, and we're in. Again, this is the bigger pain in the ass. I noticed I drained a bunch of oil on the ground. I guess it's probably because there was some oil in the old oil filter, which I had poked some holes in it, and I should have put it in the drain pan. All right, so that's that. Okay, got my oil filter hand tightened in place. Now the bike takes 3 quarts. I'm using Amsoil synthetic V-twin 20W50. So basically we got 3 quarts that go in the oil bag or tank. They call it a bag, but you know, just make sure before you do this that you have your drain plug and your oil filter in place. Otherwise, you will notice a couple minutes later that your oil is all over the place. I'm sure that has never happened to any of us. Oh no. It says that it takes about 3 to 3.5. We'll start with 3. You're not supposed to overfill these, because if you do, the oil seeps out of the engine. There's vent screws, and the way that the emissions has it, Harley has that, you know, oil, that excess kind of oil mist feeding back into the air, kind of feeding back into the basically the throttle inlet. And the more on the max that you are, the more mist you get spewing out. You don't need to be, you need to be at about half of the mark. But that is checked on the kickstand while the bike is on its side stand. Right now the bike is vertical, so fuck. So we can't really check the oil level. We just put 3 quarts, and that's what we do for now. My phone just kind of had a little bit of a dance there, so that's why By the way, these orange funnels, I got all kinds of funnels, big, small, but there's a particular one that is useful to do the primary. Holy shit. I'm just noticing the oil is really at the high level here. So might even be, I don't know why. It seems like 3 quarts was too much. My engine was warm, so I think I did drain most of the oil out, but you know, you probably be left with like half a quart or half a liter somewhere in the cases, but anyway, this is gonna work its way down, hopefully. Because at the moment, it's definitely on the high side. I'm not sure if that's visible, but there's too much in there a little bit. All right. Okay, off the jack and started for a minute, and just looking that everything is okay. In the 3 basic areas. I see a little bit of a thing here, so it might not be quite